Jayla was 3.5 years old when we got her diagnosis, and I was actually on my way home from work. My wife had called me and asked if I was coming straight home. She said, "I want you to look at Jayla. Something's off. She's kind of limping on one side, and it's like when she smiles, only half of her face is smiling." So she was swinging on the swing with my wife, and I walked out the back, and she immediately got out of the swing and started running, and she did. She had a noticeable limp. When I caught her and she turned around, she was laughing, and it was like this half was laughing and this half wasn't, and it was really odd. Of course, we kind of went in full-blown panic mode and loaded her up, and we came to Children's Hospital and checked her into the emergency room. They showed us an x-ray, and she had a huge cloud in her chest. Looking back at it, I can't imagine, the doctor, because they're like, well, it could be cancer, it could not be, we're not sure, we have to do more tests. And so of course I'm like, well, if it's not cancer, what else could it be? And she's like, there's not much else. You can imagine your 3.5-year-old that you thought was perfectly fine, and you hear that, so you're like, okay, So we sat a couple hours and they did some blood work, and then they came back and said, okay, it's leukemia.
I first met Jayla about 14 years ago. We quickly discovered that she had acute lymphocytic leukemia, a type known as T-cell, and we began her therapy immediately.
Dr. Stein and our nurse Tracy and that whole floor was just honestly amazing. We just felt like we were in good hands. We felt like they had it under control.
Because of the medication she received and the radiation therapy she received, she needs to be followed for the rest of her life. We're looking now for what we call late effects of her therapy, especially some of the drugs that could affect her heart, her growth, her development.
Jayla's doing really well now. She does have some latent effects of the chemo. The type that she had was really bad about hiding in your brain and spine. So she did some spinal taps and direct chemo into her brain and spine, and of course she did radiation directly to her brain. She has some receptive language disorders, and some of the effects of like prednisone on joints have kind of started to show up. But she's a straight A and B student. She works really, really hard.
I know during the treatment could be very hard, and someone that I've been through, I understand completely. And after the treatment's over, it gets better. At school, I love to sing, and I love cheering at my school. And then outside school, I just love hanging out with my friends.
I think some of the data is now that there may be as many as 1 in 4 children in the United States that may have been affected by a cancer. So it's a big deal.
September is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. As of right now, it's the #1 killer for kids under the age of 16, and it's a real problem, but it's a problem that's gotten so much better. And that's simply because people have given money to research. It doesn't take a lot, just giving and just understanding and learning about it. As a family that went through that, the worst thing of the whole situation is if you ever felt like you're alone and there's no support and no help. And we were always so fortunate with Arkansas Children's Hospital because we never felt that way.